Hey, welcome to Draft Academy. My name's Mike. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to build a basic translator in Python. So essentially, we can take in a string, so we can take in like a phrase or a word, and we'll be able to translate it into a different language. So over here, I have this little file, and it basically specifies this language that I made up. So I'm calling it the draft language. And in the draft language, all vowels become G. So if I was going to translate an English word into a draft word, for example, the word dog, I would look through the word dog and any instances where there was a vowel. So in our case, let's just say A, E, I, O, or U. I would convert that vowel into a G. So dog would map to DGG, cat would get mapped into CGT. So those are the basic translation rules. Obviously, this is a pretty simple language, but you get the point. Any vowel is going to become a G, and then we'll get the draft language. So we're going to build a draft translator. Over here in our Python file, let's start making this translator. The first thing I'm going to do is just define a translate function. So I'm going to make a function here, and I'm just going to call it translate. And inside of these parentheses, we want this to take one piece of information, which is going to be the phrase that we want to translate. So I'm just going to say phrase. And now inside of this function, we need to figure out like, okay, how can we translate English into our draft language? Well, remember, the rules is basically just any vowels become G's. So the first thing I want to do is create a variable. And this variable is going to be the translation. So this will be like the final result that we're going to return to the user. So I can say translation. For now, I'm just going to set it equal to the empty string. So this is just going to be like a completely empty string. It's not going to be doing anything. And now what we want to do is we basically want to loop through every letter inside of this phrase. And if it's a vowel, we want to change it to G. And if it's not a vowel, we want to leave it alone. And we're essentially going to be looping through phrase, and we're going to be adding the letters onto this translation one by one. So let me show you guys how we can do this. I'm going to make a for loop. So I'm going to say for, and I'm just going to say letter in phrase. And so now when I loop through here, I can access each individual letter inside of the phrase that they passed in. So what I want to do is I want to check to see if the letter is a vowel or not, right? If it's a vowel, then we can add a G onto translation. If it's not a vowel, then we can just add on whatever letter it was onto translation anyway. So I'm going to use this if statement. I'm going to say if, and there's actually this special thing we can do in Python. We can check to see if something is in something else. So I can say if letter in, and over here I'm just going to type out all the vowels. So we'll say A, E, I, O, U, and A, E, I, O, U. So I'm basically checking to see if the letter is inside of this string. And if the letter is inside of here, then we know that it's a vowel. So down here we can handle that case. So I can say translation is equal to translation plus G. Because if this letter is a vowel, we just want to convert it into a G. Otherwise, though, I can basically just say translation is equal to translation plus letter. So in the case where we have a vowel, I'm adding a G onto translation. In the case where we don't have a vowel, I'm just adding on whatever letter it was onto translation. So finally, down below this for loop, we just want to return the translation. So I'm just going to say return translation. And now we have a awesome translate function, and it should probably work. So let's come down here and we'll test it out. So why don't we allow a user to input some information? So I'm basically going to call this function. Actually, we're going to print it out. So we'll print this out, and I'm going to call this function translate. And inside of here, I'm actually just going to pass whatever the user inputs. So I can just say input, and inside of these parentheses, I can say the prompt. So enter a phrase. And so now I'm basically combining all of these statements together. I'm saying I want to print out the translation of whatever the user enters in. So let's go ahead and run this program and we'll see how we do. So I'm gonna run the program. It says enter a phrase. Actually, let me format this a little bit better. Okay. All right, so it says enter a phrase. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's just type in the example we used before. I'm gonna say dog. And so now out pops the answer, which is DGG. So that's kind of cool. And we can just keep running this as many times as we want. So I could type in like to be or not to be. So this is like a little bit longer of a string. And you can see it translates it into our draft language. So that's basically how we can create our little translator app. And that's pretty cool. And so you can see we're using a for loop in combination with an if loop. And that's a really powerful structure. And actually there's one place over here where we can make this a little bit more efficient. So instead of saying if letter in this string, you'll notice here I'm checking to see if it's in all the lowercase and the uppercase. I could actually just say if letter dot lower in, and now I only have to type out the lowercase letters and it's still gonna do the same exact thing. So that's a little like hack or whatever that we could use. And there's also one more problem with this program. So you'll notice down here, we're setting the translation equal to the translation plus G. But the problem is if I was to start my word inside of the phrase with a capital vowel, so in other words, if I said like on, you'll notice that when this gets printed out, it gets printed out as lowercase gn. So it's not keeping our uppercase syntax. And that's kind of a problem. So we could actually use another if statement in here and we could check to see if letter dot is upper. And if the letter is uppercase, then we can just set the translation equal to the translation plus a capital G. Otherwise, we can just set it equal to the lowercase g. And so now we're able to control both of those situations. So let's just test this and see if it works. Enter a phrase, say on, and now we're keeping that capital letter. So those are just a couple different ways that we could make this program a little bit better. But the basic concept is we have a for loop and then we have some if loops inside of it, and we're calling this awesome function that can translate a word for us. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to Draft Academy to be the first to know when we release new content. Also, we're always looking to improve, so if you have any constructive criticism or questions or anything, leave a comment below. Finally, if you're enjoying Draft Academy and you want to help us grow, head over to draftacademy.com/contribute and invest in our future.